I'm a U.S. Army general, she said clearly. They cuffed her anyway. What followed shattered 2 careers and rocked an entire department to its core, and it all happened in under 2 minutes. General Naomi Kerrigan had just crossed the street from a high-level classified briefing at the Department of Defense Annex when she pulled into the 3rd level of the Madison Tower parking garage in Arlington. Raindrops still clung to the edge of her hood as she reached into her coat pocket, fingers searching for her keys. Her expression was focused, tired, the kind of tired that doesn't come from lack of sleep, but from the mental weight of a high-stakes strategy session still playing in her mind. Then, fast footsteps. Sharp, heavy, echoing. Hands where I can see them. A voice barked out from behind. Naomi turned slowly. 2 uniformed officers advanced toward her, guns drawn, flashlights cutting through the damp garage air and blinding her momentarily. One was tall, red-faced, clearly in charge. The other, younger, had a twitch in his jaw, uncertain but eager. "Ma'am, step away from the vehicle," the younger one commanded, voice raised. Naomi lifted her hands slowly, calmly. "Officers, Don't move," the taller one snapped before she could finish. "We received a call about someone suspicious tampering with vehicles. You fit the description." She blinked in disbelief. "I'm walking to my own car. My name is General Naomi Kerrigan. I just came from." "Back against the wall," he ordered, cutting her off. There was no pause, no curiosity, no verification, no request for ID, just a decision already made. The taller officer lunged forward, grabbing her wrist and yanking it behind her back. Her laptop bag hit the ground with a heavy thud. Her military ring scraped against the coarse surface of a concrete pillar as her other arm was jerked back roughly. Naomi winced, but she didn't scream. "Is this really happening?" she whispered aloud. Not to them, but to herself. She didn't resist, didn't yell. She just stood still, her cheek against the cold surface of the pillar, listening to the metallic clink of the handcuffs ratcheting tighter around her wrists. Her ID card slipped from her coat pocket during the scuffle, clearly marked with her full name, rank, and Pentagon clearance barcode. It landed inches from the officer's boot. He never even looked down. Naomi inhaled slowly. "Sir," she said steadily, "I'm a United States Army general. I'm unarmed. I'm not resisting. I'm asking you to verify who I am." "Save it," the younger officer muttered. "People like you always think you can talk your way out of anything." That stopped her cold. "People like her?" She turned her head slightly, locking eyes with him. "What exactly do you mean by that?" He didn't answer. Meanwhile, the other officer had begun rummaging through her bag. "What's this? Some kind of encrypted device?" "It's my secured military laptop," Naomi responded, voice calm but unshakably firm. "There's a barcode inside the flap. You can scan it." But they didn't scan it. They kept searching, kept assuming, kept acting like the badge on their chest gave them the only authority in the room. Naomi remained composed on the outside, but something inside her fractured, not from fear, but from the chilling clarity of knowing exactly why this was happening. "This isn't just a misunderstanding," she said evenly. "It's a mistake, one with consequences." The younger cop laughed bitterly. "Lady, you're in no position to be handing out warnings." Naomi didn't argue. Instead, with a slight tilt of her cuffed wrist, she tapped a small button on her smartwatch. 1 second. 2. A quiet vibration confirmed it. A secure emergency signal had just been sent to the Joint Command Liaison at the Pentagon. Her ID, her GPS location, everything. No sirens. No alarms. But someone was listening now. She turned her head, just slightly. "You've got about 10 minutes, she said flatly, "before this parking garage gets very, very crowded." "Excuse me?" the tall officer challenged. "You heard me," she repeated, her voice steady. 10 minutes. Still, they kept going, digging through her belongings, clinging to the illusion of control. They had no idea who they were dealing with. But to understand how badly they misjudged her, you have to know who Naomi Kerrigan really is. Not just a name on a government ID. Not just the words, "you." Army General. To understand her, you have to go back to the dusty backroads of Mount Bayou, Mississippi, the town her grandfather called Black Wall Street without the headlines. Naomi grew up in a small house with creaky floorboards and a refrigerator covered in honor roll ribbons. Her mother worked night shifts as a nurse. Her father repaired AC units and prayed nightly that none of his kids would have to wear a uniform, unless they chose to. Naomi chose to, because the world was full of rules, and she wanted to know them better than anyone. ROTC took her out of Mississippi, Jackson State to Fort Benning. Then everything ignited. She was smart, strategic, fluent in 2 languages, and never once asked for mercy as a black woman in a field where women, especially black women, rarely rose past middle ranks. By 38, she was running missions across 4 continents. By 45, she was briefing presidents. She had been deployed, tested, decorated, yet none of it shielded her from the reality of how the world still saw her. Especially today. Earlier that morning, she led a closed-door Pentagon briefing on cyber threat deterrence. She wore full uniform then. She changed afterward, hoodie, slacks, before heading to her car. She wasn't looking for attention, just trying to get home. But there in that parking garage, surrounded by concrete and suspicion, none of it mattered. They didn't see a general. They saw a threat. And Naomi wasn't even surprised. She'd seen this script play out too many times, for neighbors, for strangers, for fellow service members who didn't look like they belonged. She just never thought she'd be next. Not in a garage across the street from the very building where she held top-level clearance. Even as it unfolded, Naomi's mind didn't panic. It processed. Questions lined up like a checklist. How close are we to the main dispatch hub? Is this Arlington PD or private security? How fast will the Pentagon respond to my alert? Which direction are the ceiling cameras facing? This wasn't just about getting through the moment. This was tactical. Naomi knew instinctively. Panic couldn't protect her. But protocol might. She glanced at her wrist. A small green light blinked steadily on her smartwatch. Someone was watching. Help was en route. And yet, these 2 officers were still posturing, still acting like they'd cornered a common criminal. "What's a woman like you doing down here anyway?" the taller one asked, smug. "Scoping out cars." Naomi slowly turned her head, keeping her voice even. "You might want to stop talking." "Oh," he sneered. "That a threat?" "No," she said without blinking. "That's advice. The kind you'll wish you took." But he wasn't hearing her. He just yanked the cuffs tighter. Sergeant Curtis Harlow had been in uniform for 15 years. The type who bristled at being questioned, especially by women, and definitely not by someone who looked like her. His partner, Officer Ethan Morales, was newer, jumpy, eager to prove himself, nervous in his skin. But whatever their reasons, neither of them had any business doing what they were doing that day. They'd responded to a vague call, a woman reporting someone near the vehicles in the garage. No urgency, no details, just suspicion on a phone line. And when Harlow and Morales pulled up and saw Naomi standing alone beside a black SUV, in a hoodie, they didn't verify. They didn't inquire. They reacted. Guns out. Assumptions in place. Gut instincts unchecked. Naomi didn't fit the picture they'd painted of who belonged in a high-security neighborhood. So they tried to erase her from it. "Let's run the plates," Morales muttered, fumbling with his radio. Harlow waved him off. "Nah. If she's lying, she'll screw up. They always do." Naomi shifted slightly. "You know what else always screws people over?" she said coolly. "Body cams." Morales looked uneasy. "Sarge, are the cams on?" Harlow shot him a sharp glance. "Of course. Protocol." Naomi stared forward. "Good. Then the Pentagon won't have to rely solely on security footage. Your department's audio will fill in the gaps." Morales blinked. "Did she just say the Pentagon?" "She says a lot of things," Harlow scoffed. But his confidence had started to crack. His hand slowed, and something deep in his gut began to stir. Naomi used the moment. "I was the commanding officer on Operation Bronze Drift. I've briefed 2 presidents. Only 4 people in this state have clearance for what's on that laptop. and two of them sit in the Secretary of Defense's office. Morales looked at Harlow, visibly rattled. Harlow gave a weak chuckle, but it lacked bite. You expect us to believe that? Naomi met his eyes, unflinching. No. I expect you to realize it doesn't matter what you believe. What matters is that you searched my belongings without cause, cuffed me without identification, and ignored protocol from the moment you saw me. You just assaulted a federal officer on federal property. Morales leaned in. Sarge, maybe we should verify her ID. Again. Harlow's pride dug in. Don't get soft, he muttered. She's bluffing. Naomi didn't say another word. She didn't need to. Because from the far end of the garage, the unmistakable rhythm of approaching boots echoed. 3 men in suits entered at a brisk pace. Behind them, 2 military police officers flanked a black SUV with government plates and darkened windows. Naomi shifted her stance. Took them long enough, she muttered. Morales turned ghost white. Harlow straightened. Too little, too late. One of the agents held up his badge. Special Agent Marcus O'Neill, Department of Defense. Step away from the detainee. Now. Morales scrambled back, so quickly he tripped over Naomi's laptop bag. Harlow stood his ground, but his defiance didn't land. Agent O'Neill didn't flinch. He stepped forward. Naomi let out a long breath as the cuffs finally came off. Ma'am, O'Neill said, his voice lowering. Are you injured? Naomi shook her head. Not physically. Harlow remained frozen. He hadn't yet registered how badly he'd just torched his career. Naomi rubbed her wrists, the skin raw and red. She didn't complain, didn't flinch, just kept her eyes on Harlow. O'Neill turned to the officers. Did she resist? Morales's voice cracked. No, sir. She complied. Did she raise her voice? Threaten anyone? Act aggressive? Morales shook his head. No, sir. Did she identify herself? A slower nod this time. Yes. She said she was a general. O'Neill's tone hardened. And you didn't think to check that before you cuffed her? Morales looked at the ground. Harlow stared forward, like if he held still long enough, maybe the earth would swallow him. Naomi finally spoke, clear and sharp. It was never about verifying anything. It was about asserting control. O'Neill nodded. We're reviewing surveillance now. Cameras were active, and your alert made it to Pentagon comms, just as expected. Naomi replied, calm and crisp. That's why I triggered it. Behind them, the MPs retrieved her belongings from the ground. I want everything documented, Naomi said. Fingerprints, timestamps, radio traffic, dash cams, chain of custody for all of it. You'll have it, O'Neill answered. A JAG officer is already en route. That's when Harlow finally broke his silence. This is some kind of joke, right? Naomi didn't look away. You're right. It is a joke. But the punchline is your badge. He opened his mouth, but nothing came out. Agent Marcus O'Neill pointed toward the far end of the parking structure. We'll be escorting General Kerrigan to the command vehicle. Officers, remain here until Internal Affairs from Arlington PD arrives. Morales's voice cracked. Wait, we're under investigation. You're being documented, O'Neill replied, flat and final. You'll know by morning if it becomes something more. Naomi passed them silently. Head high, no glance back. Inside the unmarked SUV, a young communications officer turned, holding out a secured phone. Joint Command is on the line, ma'am. Naomi took it, her voice as composed as it had been all day. This is General Kerrigan. We've got a situation. The reply came instantly. We're aware. Body cam feeds are already under review. So is the civilian call. It was a mistake on her part, but what happened after that? That's a separate issue entirely. Naomi didn't nod, didn't flinch. I want a full debrief. Logged, routed through legal channels. I'm not looking for an apology. I want the protocol followed by the book. Understood, General. She ended the call, not because she was finished, but because she needed a second to breathe. Outside, rain had begun again. Soft, persistent, not enough to blur the windows, but enough to remind her the storm hadn't passed. No one spoke in the car. Naomi turned to the driver. Take me home. Of course, ma'am. She leaned her head against the seat back, closed her eyes, and whispered just loud enough to hear herself. This country, I've given it everything, and it still needs to see a badge before it sees me. But Naomi knew this wasn't over. Not even close. By the time she returned to her townhouse in McLean, the rain had stopped, but the air still held a thick weight, something deeper than weather, something unresolved. Her porch light flickered faintly as she walked up the steps, her uniform coat folded over one arm, her mind still grinding through every frame of the encounter. Inside, she didn't sit. Not yet. She poured a glass of water, took off her shoes, and opened her laptop, where the preliminary report from the Office of Military Justice was already waiting. She read in silence, posture tight, eyes scanning, absorbing every word. 10 minutes passed before her phone rang. "Naomi," said the voice on the line. It was Brigadier General Daniel Prescott, former Marine. All sharp edges and no wasted words. "We've already got press poking around," he said bluntly. "Someone leaked a tip. 2 local cops detained a high-ranking military official. They don't know it was you. Not yet." Naomi stood still at her kitchen counter. "Let them," she said. Prescott didn't challenge her. He knew better. "You planning to file?" "No," Naomi said, slowly. "The Pentagon will handle it. I don't want optics. I want consequences." There was a pause. Then Prescott added, "Understood. And for the record, we've got your back." She hung up without another word. Across town, at the Arlington precinct, Harlow and Morales sat in a cramped, fluorescent-lit interview room. They weren't in cuffs, but they weren't comfortable. The door opened. A woman in a gray suit entered, holding a thick folder under one arm. "Captain Rafael Cortez, Internal Affairs," she said, without preamble. "I'll make this simple. Do either of you want to explain why you disregarded direct identification from a federal officer?" Morales leaned forward, fidgeting. She didn't look like, we didn't know who she was. She had a hoodie on. No badge visible. Cortez flipped a page in the file. She identified herself clearly, stated her name and rank, offered ID, complied from the start. Harlow's jaw twitched. She was standing next to a black SUV. That's what we had to go on. Anyone would have reacted the same. "No," Cortez said, eyes steady. "I wouldn't have, because I read the reports. I confirm identities. And I don't slap cuffs on civilians based on instinct." Harlow leaned back, bitter. "You're turning this into a race thing." Cortez didn't even blink. "I'm not. But the video is." He went silent. Within 24 hours, the Pentagon's legal division had sent a formal statement to Arlington PD's chief. The documentation was airtight. Every second recorded. Every protocol violation logged. Naomi hadn't raised her voice. Hadn't resisted. She'd even warned them, plainly, calmly, that what they were doing was unlawful. They hadn't listened. By Wednesday morning, both Harlow and Morales were placed on administrative leave. That same afternoon, the police chief addressed the media. "We take this seriously, and we are cooperating fully with the federal investigation." Later that night, in his garage, Morales broke down. The weight hit him all at once. His wife was pregnant, due in November. He hadn't shoved her, he told himself. He hadn't been aggressive. He just didn't speak up. He followed the lead. Harlow, on the other hand, was defiant. Told his brother the whole thing was blown out of proportion. That people pull the race card to stir chaos. She's just another angry government type. But this time, no one in the department stood by him. Not after watching the footage. Not after hearing the audio. And especially not after reading Naomi's public statement the next day. Just 6 sentences. That's all it took. "I did not ask for special treatment. I asked to be seen. I did not resist. I complied. And still, I was handcuffed, searched, and humiliated for simply existing. This is not just about me. This is about how many people don't get the chance to make a call that changes the outcome. I did. They didn't." It went viral in under 4 hours. Not because it was loud, but because it was focused, controlled, just like Naomi. News anchors read it aloud on morning shows. Influencers posted videos analyzing the timeline. And across the country, other service members, black, brown, uniformed, and not, began sharing their own stories. Their quiet near misses. Their close calls with assumptions. This wasn't just a controversy anymore. It had become a mirror, a pattern. And now, the whole country was watching. Arlington PD found itself cornered. The footage wasn't going away. The audio told a story that couldn't be spun. No yelling. No resisting. No aggression. Just one black woman. Calm. Composed. Identifying herself clearly. And still being handcuffed, dismissed, and treated like a criminal inside a federal facility. Internal Affairs had already issued its conclusion. Sergeant Curtis Harlow was to be terminated. Ethan Morales, he was given a choice: resign quietly or face a full disciplinary board. He chose resignation. Naomi didn't celebrate when she found out. There was no smile, no champagne, just a quiet morning on her back patio, sipping coffee, watching the trees sway gently in the breeze, letting the silence speak louder than any headline ever could. Later that week, a letter arrived at her door. No return address. Hand-delivered. Inside, one page. Neatly typed. General Kerrigan, I failed to act. I froze. I followed when I should have questioned. I didn't see you. And for that, I am deeply sorry. I will carry this for the rest of my life. Ethan Morales. Naomi folded the letter carefully and placed it in a drawer, next to old service pins, and a photograph of her father in uniform. That night, she addressed a group of young cadets over a video call. Her voice was steady, her message unmistakable. Remember this: your title carries weight, but your skin enters the room first. People will judge you before you open your mouth. That's not your fault, but it is your responsibility to decide how you respond. One cadet, a young woman from Tulsa, raised her hand. Ma'am, were you scared? Naomi paused, then nodded. Yes, but not for myself. I was afraid that if I panicked, I'd confirm every lie they were already telling themselves about me. That weekend, a civil rights group invited Naomi to speak at a rally in Dallas. She declined. I don't need a microphone, she told them. I need better policy, better training, real accountability. When that's on the table, call me. Instead, she quietly wrote an op-ed for The Hill. She met privately with 2 state legislators. No press, no photo ops, just action. Meanwhile, the Arlington Police Union issued its statement, defensive, measured, called it a high-pressure misunderstanding, claimed there was no proven malicious intent. Naomi read it once, closed her laptop, didn't respond. She didn't have to. The truth had already echoed far beyond that parking garage. But for many, what lingered wasn't what she said, it was what she didn't. The silence, the restraint, the quiet that forced everyone to look anyway. Weeks passed. Naomi returned to her rhythm: briefings, meetings, late-night strategy calls with global partners. But the faint red line around her wrist hadn't faded. She didn't try to hide it. And one evening, just after 9 p.m., she found herself back in that garage. Same concrete pillar, same flickering lights, same camera above. But this time, no guns, no shouting, no assumptions. She stood still, took a slow breath, and snapped a photo. Not for the public, not for evidence, just for her. Because that spot, it wasn't just where someone disrespected her. It was where she refused to let them define her. Later that night, she wrote a rare journal entry. I followed every rule. I earned every stripe. I served my country. And still, they didn't see me. But I saw them, and I will remember. Naomi never filed a lawsuit, never gave an exclusive interview. But change still came. New policy reforms were adopted inside Arlington PD, training programs rewritten. A third-party oversight board was created to review use of force incidents. And the woman who made that initial call, she never came forward. But her 911 recording is now played in every new recruit's training course. Because sometimes, the lesson isn't in the outrage. It's in what happens when the noise fades. Naomi understood what the world thinks power looks like: sharp suits, loud voices, commanding attention with presence. But she also knew a different kind of power, the kind that doesn't need to shout, the kind that moves with clarity, with dignity, the kind that defines itself quietly. Her story wasn't just about race, or rank, or respect. It was about restraint, because real strength isn't always loud, and dignity doesn't always look like a headline. Sometimes, it's what remains when someone tries to strip it away. So now I ask you, just as Naomi asked those cadets, what do you do when no one sees you for who you really are? Do you lash out? Or do you hold the line, trusting the truth to speak louder than anything you could ever say? And for those listening who wear a badge, carry a weapon, or hold power in any form, ask yourself, are you listening? Or are you just looking? Because the next Naomi might not have a badge, might not have Pentagon clearance, might not have time to press a button. So be better now, before your silence costs someone their life. Thank you for watching. Subscribe me and hit the notification bell to not miss new stories. Bye.